Spring Boot is definitely not a code generation tool. However, there is a website that can help you get started and create you a blank project to begin with. The start.spring.io website is available both as a web page and a web service. You can either call it directly from a web browser, or you can use the Spring Init command, or you can even curl it directly from your command line. Pick the type of projects that you want and the facets that you're interested in, and it will create you a basic template of a project. Let's have a quick look at how that works. So here we have start.spring.io. This is a simple web page that lets you type in what you're interested in with your project. So for instance, Maven or Gradle group coordinates and artifact IDs, the name of your project, an optional description, a package name, the type of project you want and some version information, and then lets you pick the facets that you're interested in. So for example, if we want to create a web application, we can just check the web facet. If we're also interested in, say, Twitter integration, we can check that tick box as well. If we click Generate Project, we get a download of a zip containing the outline of the project. If we head over and open that, we can see what's inside. So you can see in this case I've got a simple Maven project. I've got an outline of an application class, some resources in case I want them, and the outline of a test case. If I want to do the same thing in STS, there's a little wizard to help me. So if I select File, New, and then Other, I can type in Spring Starter Project from the list, and then again I get the same type of form as before. I'm going to select a web application again, and then click Finish. So again, you can see the same outline, this time imported and installed directly into Eclipse. If you type Spring Help in it, you'll get some help about the command, including some samples. So for instance, if I want to do Spring Init-d web, myapp.zip as suggested, I'll get the same type of output as before. Another useful option is Spring Init-list. This provides you all the other types of flags that you can use. So for instance, here we're getting the list that's in the checkboxes or on the web page. Another option is to use curl. If you type curl start.spring.io, you'll get a help information about the types of projects that you can create. There's also an example how to use curl directly at the bottom. So again, to create the default demo example, I can just type the following. And there's our project outline again. If we want to actually see what's inside the application, we can go and open that demo that we used earlier. So here you can see we have the same sort of setup as the Groovy example. We need a little bit more boilerplate. We have some imports. We have the name of the class. We have a single annotation. This is a new annotation that was added in Spring Boot 1.2. If you jump into it, you'll see it's actually a combination of @configuration, @enable auto configuration, and @component scan. These three annotations were so common that we decided to collapse them into a single useful one-line annotation. If we look at the application.properties file, you see it's just blank. This just provides a convenient way to get started if you want to add properties to your application. If you're not interested in using them, you can just delete this file. We also have static and templates created here. This again is just to give you some guidance as to what folders you're likely to want to use in your application. Finally, we have a test case, and again, this doesn't actually do anything, it's just a blank placeholder to remind you that you ought to be writing tests. The nice thing about Spring Boot applications is they're just standard Java applications. That means you don't need anything special in your tooling to run them. So for instance, to run this application, I can just select Run from the drop-down menu. And here the application started. If I go to the web browser, you'll see we just get an error page here because we haven't defined any default routes. Being able to run an application directly in your IDE is also really useful if you want to debug it. Again, you don't need any kind of special tooling. If I want to add a breakpoint and see what Spring Boot is doing, I can just do it in the standard way. This time I'm going to start the app in debug mode. It's going to tell me that I want to switch perspectives, and then the application stops before it's even begun. If we want to make this example the same as the Groovy one, all we need to do is add that missing controller. Let's create a new class. Example controller. I need to annotate it with REST controller, and this time I also need the imports. Then I can add request mappings and my hello method. I also need to add the semicolons this time. If I restart the application again, head back to the web browser and refresh it, this time we get the hello world example as before.